welcome to edition 118, part 2 of All Killa No Filla podcast with me, Rachel Fairburn, and Kiri Pritchard-McLean. Just before we start, we'll do our usual disclaimer. This isn't hero worship. We do this podcast because we have a mutual interest in serial killers. As long as we are doing this podcast, it stops us from writing to them in prison.
It does. This is part 2 of our Linda Hazzard episode, also known as the Starvation Doctor.
Yes.
We did another episode, and afterwards I drove home thinking, God, I had so much fun, and I don't think we said anything about.
I'll be honest. It's one of those quite vague, really, isn't it?
It is until
really?
I'd say the very last bit, and then there's loads of detail, because that's one of the interesting things as well. Is like you find with all these things, the richer the victim, the more information there is about them. There's just people care more when privileged people die, right? Rachel, we were just talking about this before we started recording, that I have single-handedly ruined my own algorithm and yours. Mine. Yes, because I came across... Do you ever get that thing where you're watching a reel you want to watch on Instagram and then you just swipe up and then something else comes?
Yeah, or sometimes you click on... Someone sends you a reel, you click on it and it sends you to something else. I'm like, this isn't what
agreed.
They've sent. Yeah.
So I definitely have been... I think I was sent this in a chicken capacity of something first. And so that's why she's sort of... Or maybe it's because of chicken content that she's on my sort of thing. I won't name who it is, because if you know, you'll know. But it's a woman. How would you describe her, Rachel? I'm interested in your take on it.
Do you want me to be honest?
Go on.
A brick shithouse with crap clothes. She's like a really sturdy woman.
Yeah, she's got kind of my build, but I would say she's more muscular, and she does do sort of like yoga type stuff.
And the clothes are terrible. I mean, I don't care what anyone looks like. I'm not interested, but the clothes, I mean, I can smell the clothes, like nylon, bad quality, but done on purpose because she's very free. This lady, her boobs, she doesn't wear a bra, fine, do what you want. But now it's on my algorithm. And she's listening to this thing and she's out in the snow all the time. And I'm thinking, mate, your tits are blue. Can you put a jacket on? Because you're actually cold. You know when you get all that red stuff on your arm because it's cold?
Yeah.
You're cold. You're
going to get Raynaud's in your nipples.
Yeah, you're going to and then there'll be thirst traps of her. I mean, I've never seen such camel toe. And I'm not in the business of body shaming, and I just find it all quite odd that it's,
yes,
I don't know what the vibe is.
Because it's a really interesting combo of like trad wife, farming-y, kind of feeding the turkeys, feeding the chickens, baking. I've never seen her make anything that doesn't look awful.
Yeah.
And also she does painting. Every single one of them's awful. What? And so kind of slow life, which obviously I'm big fan of that. But then coupled with extreme fast fashion, flammable, oil-based products that ride right up her fanny and right up her arsehole. And I was like, it took me ages to realise. I was like, oh God, she must not know that we can see her vagina in that. Or she must not know that that's gone up her arse. That's deliberate. And I imagine that it's just... Her DMs are an absolute nightmare of horny guys.
Yeah, but I guess that's what she wants. But I just kind of feel like sometimes, do we have to have all this on Instagram? Do we have to have all this on normals? Can you go and do this somewhere else? I don't need to see all this.
Porn gets everywhere, though. Or eroticism or whatever. Just as soon as you invent a new thing, people are working out how to sort of display genitals.
I just find it so... weird how everything is so completely self-absorbed. So self-absorbed. Like everything's like, look at me. Look at my bum. Look at my fanny. Look at my... I'm just like... But also, it's so self-absorbed in the respect of making these videos all day, like filming yourself feeding chickens. You're not really feeding chickens. You're pretending to feed chickens because... that's what you do for a video. Like, you're not really baking, you're pretending to bake. Like, everything is through the camera lens, and I just find it weird. It's so... To be honest, it's a bit creepy. And I don't know why.
I find it really bleak because every now and then there was one again that appeared, maybe because of her, but they're based, maybe it was because they're Welsh, but like someone who wants to be an influencer who isn't yet, if you watch them, so they still have to live their life like an influencer and create content, and she spends a lot of time in the woods, and I think she's clearly quite a complicated woman with a lot going on, is my sort of politest way of putting it. And I just think you're out there like making, again, exactly the same kind of jersey thin material. I don't know why they're those dresses that like they fit at the waist and then they naturally kind of slide down towards your groin and then your knees come out of them. There's like these big splits.
Horrible.
And they never wear pants. So you're like, oh, that's a bit of vulva. That's a bit of vulva every time they walk.
Do you know what it is? And I've said this, and I said this the other day. I'm reading another book about Fred and Rose West. It's the Rose West aesthetic. This is what this is. Like, we all know that she never wore any underwear, which was going around with the bits out all the time. Like, that's what it's like. Rose West would have been had a Instagram with like at home with Rose or something. It's so weird. I just find it so odd that everything is about, I don't know, it's just, I find it a bit sad, to be honest with you.
I think there's something really bleak because I was thinking about this person who I found who's from like North Wales, and she just spends her days out making this stuff. And again, like this, a lot of them preach nature and then wear brands that are incredibly destructive for the planet. So they're in like and I'm not speculating, like literally I saw someone underneath was like, where did you get that? And it's like Fashion Nova. And you're like, okay, well that's just made of oil and is really bad for the planet. And so they're happily buying fast fashion and then preaching how we need to protect nature. So we can look at and they spend you can tell hours and hours sort of making this like thirsty, fake empowering stuff.
It's just an act. Everything's an act.
Yeah.
It's all an act.
But it's just so grim. Like, I think that's quite a depressing way to live unless you are successful at it, right? Because it's like, it must be, grim to be like, oh, I've got 100, not that followers mean anything, but I've got 100 followers and it's like your full-time job and you're not managing to crack it. I don't know. I
will say this, and don't anyone write in because I ain't interested. It doesn't matter how good you are at something. It doesn't matter how talented you are at something as a woman. It doesn't matter. Just show your flaps and you'll get more followers.
Do you know what I was thinking? Like, especially because that woman is like the first woman we're talking about, similar a build to me. I was like, fuck me. Should I just be putting like, I go and feed my chickens without a bra on all the fucking time. I need to start putting a GoPro on the wall and you can see my fucking spaniel's ears flopping around in the chicken pellets.
I mean, look, people can do what they want, but I just always think, can we move? Is not anything else we can offer here? Is this it?
I mean, I find it funny as well because like she's always sort of like collecting warm eggs and stroking a turkey. Genuinely, my main instruction from the chickens is shooing them out the way while I shovel shit out of their coops. Like, that is the reality of having animals, is mainly you are cleaning up their shit at some point or fixing some disease that they've given themselves. But you never see that. You never see her, like, scrubbing a hen's feet because they've got scaly foot.
Oh, God. I hate it even more now. Oh, God. Yeah, it's all a bit weird. It's not my bag. Listen, I was happy with my algorithm as constant Oasis videos and the odd capybara. That was my thing.
Mine can't settle because also I'm so bad at being drawn in by something, and then you click on one picture of one sort of Photoshop picture of Britney Spears to be like, what's that? And then all of a sudden it's like horrific, like side by sides of celebrity women. You're like, no, I don't want this. Mine's sort of antique jewelry. Song and dance numbers from the 40s in sort of classic Hollywood. I'm trying to reset it and make it more like a gay man's, because the weird sort of like everything's AI as well now. Sorry to sound like a nana, but I'm like,
no, but it's true. But also I think people are too quick to embrace that. Like people who use GPT, is it called? I don't know.
Yeah.
To sort of, I just did this to see. It's like, just do it yourself. Like I just think people are so quick to just use it, even like, oh, look, as a joke. Don't use it as a joke. Just stop using it. Do it yourself.
Agreed. Totally.
Totally. I've got no interest in it. I'm just like, as humans, the one thing that sets us apart from just animals scrabbling around is that we're creative and we can make things and we can, write and we can, engage in an artistic way. And the fact that you're just quite happy to sit back and go, draw me this, it blows my mind.
Yeah, I agree.
You'll see it now. You'll see comics now and you'll be like, you've just put that through AI.
Ugh.
You'll start seeing it.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure. Well, I mean, it's just because it's cheaper than paying their mates to write their jokes, isn't it?
Well, yeah, there is that. Yeah.
So, Linda Hazzard. We're at the part where she's moved to Alala and she's got her sanitarium, Wilderness Heights, colloquially known as Starvation Heights. So are we in about 1908, I think, when we left?
1908. Yes. Yes, we're around that area.
Great. So it did take a long time to build Wilderness Heights and it was very expensive. So one of the things she would do is she was advertising hard in like the papers. The Seattle Daily Times and Seattle Sunday Times had adverts for her sanitarium and her methods and her books. So she would start corresponding with future patients. She was basically canvassing. And before the sanitarium was built, she would put up her patients in local cabins or hotels and she would sort of treat them remotely. Now, we're going to go through a list of her victims, which starts in 1908 with Elgin Cox. What a fantastic name. That same year, she kills Daisy Maud Hagland. Now, Daisy was the daughter of Norwegian immigrants. She was put on a 50-day fast, which is nearly 2 months of this fasting. Horrific. She dies on the 26th of February. She's only 38. She's my age, and she dies. It's awful. She also has a little boy that she leaves behind. He's only 3 years old. His name is Ivar, and Ivar Hagland goes on to found a massive chain of seafood restaurants called Ivar's Restaurants. I think they're just in America. But yeah, that is her son who dedicated his life to feeding people.
I was going to say, he did literally the opposite of starving to death. Good old Ivar.
Now, they start to sort of like the press are across what she's doing and that people are passing away. And she's really indignant. One of the things she says is, in 11 years, I've lost 9 patients. What doctor can show results like that? And then she basically said, this is in about 1907, she's sort of saying this. She gives an interview with again, the Seattle Daily Times. And she basically says it's a culture war. It's traditional medicine being really threatened by her methods, how successful they are, and the fact that they don't understand it. She says they abhor anything new. And you know what? I don't think that's a bad shout. I think, medicine and science can be very entrenched and against new things, but also that is a tiny sort of thing that exists that then quackery absolutely exploits, and wellness. And I'm not saying all wellness is quackery and vice versa, but the two are closely linked bedfellows. Have you listened to the podcast? It was bigger than Joe Rogan's, called the Telepathy Tapes.
No.
That's a really interesting example of it's kind of pushing back against medicine and received wisdom of medicine, and points out where medicine's been wrong before. In relation to children with autism, and in particular children who are non-verbal. I have pretty strong views about it and the conclusions it comes to, but that has been incredibly popular because basically it asserts that non-verbal children who have been told awful things by like doctors, like, oh, there's no one in there, there's nothing in there, like their parents have been told that. The podcast asserts that actually they're able to use telepathy. They're all speaking in this kind of other world. And by the end of the series, spoiler alerts, it's kind of like it's God. It's proof that there's God. And it really, for me, jumps the shark quite quickly in that direction.
I was going to say, it sounds a bit.
But what the difficult thing for me is they're speaking to parents who aren't lying, but the parents who have had, really hugely traumatic journeys with their children, you know, and the treatment they've received and the lack of support they've received. And this is what this Linda is doing as well. And it's like you're saying, the Belle Gibson, isn't it? They find people who are absolutely desperate, and they go, we know everyone else has let you down. We believe in you, and there is a way to do this. You just have to believe and try hard enough. And I think it is. I honestly think it's the hugest form of exploitation ever. It's horrific.
Well, I think you have to be a psychopath to do it.
Do you think?
Yeah. 100%.
Well, do you think
it's cult-like behaviour?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that Belle Gibson. Very, very odd person.
Yeah.
So odd. I'd say a psychopath. I'd say she's Linda's a bloody psychopath.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's cult-like behaviour. It's giving yourself a godlike status. It doesn't sit well with me.
No. Do you know, someone I know, their mum passed away. She had cancer that had spread, and she passed away when him and his brother were quite young. And they were going through the house, and they found she was still having chemotherapy, but started to eschew it at the end and go to like homeopathy and things like that. I get it, because I don't get it because I've not been through it, but I've seen it very close. Chemotherapy is absolutely brutal. And there was all these sort of like, you know, water that's remembered stuff and that they found, and they were two sort of like basically teenage boys cleaning out the house, and one of them said to the other one like, should we, I just want to send this back with a note going, it didn't work. But the only reason they didn't is because the guy who was sending the stuff to her wasn't charging her for it. He like genuinely believed it would help.
Right.
He wasn't trying to. It's when people try and monetize, especially people with cancer, that I want to burn their houses down.
Yeah, there's something very dark about it. I do think some people do think they are helping, especially if the guy's not taking any money.
Yeah.
I do think that there is a point where it is that, you know, it's done. There's nothing else. And I think, you know, when people do stop treatment, it's like, well, maybe if I take this might help in some other way. It's not going to make me as ill as the chemotherapy or whatever. But, you know, you don't know what you're doing to you unless you're in that position. Yeah. You know? And some people think, I'll just stop the treatment, take this. Maybe I'll just have a couple more months without being horrendously ill. You know?
Yeah. And there's a definitely compelling argument from people I've known who've lived with cancer for a long time of holistic stuff and stuff that's more, you know, like being really mindful about their diet and what they're putting in their body alongside, you know, cutting edge medical treatment.
Well, I just always think as well, there's two things that I do think we should be taught from a young age at school, for example. How to eat properly, like good nutrition, and I think good sort of exercise, not like the exercise you have to do at school where it's shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, teach kids maybe a bit of weightlifting, maybe a bit of this. Teach them things that are a bit more diverse than doing bloody rounders, you know? And then I think teach good nutrition and also your mindset. I think if you start telling people to think more positively or teaching people how to be more positive from a very young age, you're going to get better results. Because, like, I didn't know. When I was younger, I started to get depressed when I was about 14. So, and it just feels like no one ever said, this is positive, this is a great way to think. Maybe if you feel like this, think like that. I think I don't know, I think it should be part of the whole sort of teaching sort of programme, teaching kids how to be, not mindful, just positive, you know, and coping mechanisms for life, that kind of thing. You know, sort of these things might happen to you. Here's how to deal with it. Because really, you go to school and then you're booted out into the world and you're like, oh, fucking hell.
Yeah, I mean, it might be so different from when we went now, but I remember PSC being like nothing, DOS subject. Yeah. And that is where you should be learning about that, like, even just like, what's national insurance? What's, you know, what's these things? You know, just stuff that is like, and you're so right about, even if it's like self-soothing practices and things like that, and things that you can do, just things that most people take till with help or a lot of work on their own till their 30s to realise to sort of make their lives a bit more manageable or to deal with the stresses and stuff that come their way. Yeah, for sure. And I think they are doing, I don't know, I thought they are doing weight stuff now in schools, but maybe not. I think it's just stuff that goes in and out of fashion, right? And also stuff that's cheap. Rounders is cheap. You buy 10 of those Rounders bats and that's it.
Fucking boring though, isn't it? I also think like, you know me, I'm a big believer in the mindset of your positive mind about age. You will continue to be, I think, nimble, active, keep that positive mindset, and I think your brain and your thoughts do age you quicker than anything. So I think have a positive mindset. Don't let age don't kowtow to age. Don't be what you think people think you should be at whatever age. It's like now, and I've said this, I'm fucking sick to death of hearing about the menopause being, and it's not being helpful, it's being weaponised against women. Like, oh, well, is it this? Well, that'll be the menopause. Have you ever thought that maybe you're just in a bad mood? Have you ever thought that maybe you don't need these herbal tablets? Have you ever thought that maybe people are starting to go, oh, right, well, here's another thing we can monetise against women? I'm sick of it. It's just a natural part of life. Yes, people should talk about it. Yes, there should be more help about it. Yes, people should be more open about it. But I just feel that it's being used to try and get more money out of women.
Well, I think you're so right. It's this same thing, right? Where there's so little, like anything to do with the womb, there's so little research on, and so they don't give a shit. So what have snake oil salesmen done? They go, right, well, there's some women who are desperate. You know, there's so many different symptoms. They affect everyone differently. There's so many people who are going through the menopause here who are absolutely desperate to have some assistance with it. We will sell them some magic beans and tell them that that's all their problems sorted out. And yeah, you're so right. It's exactly like this. It's just taking people who are desperate and are struggling with stuff and completely fucking them over and saying you can buy your way out of this.
But also projecting that onto women as well. Like, I find it really, really offensive. Like, I've had it where I've said, talking about something on stage and whatever, and someone will shout out, maybe it's the menopause. It's like, maybe it's not. Maybe it's the world. Maybe the world is annoying. Maybe that's why I'm irritated. Maybe I've been like this since I was 14. Maybe it's just my personality. And it's like, it's that kind of thing, talking about if you're not feeling great as a woman, suddenly it's always your hormones. It's always the menopause. It can't be anything else, can it? It has to be that. And I just feel like it's projected onto people constantly. And by other women need to wind their necks in, quite frankly, sometimes. Because when you're having a conversation, they're like, oh, probably perimenopause. I'm like, do you know what? What has this got to do with the fact that I find it irritating when a delivery driver rings when they're on the way? That is not, like, I just feel that people are too quick to label something. And I just feel like it's quite, don't be a stereotype. So quick to just be that person. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm not explaining this correctly, but I just get so fed up of it. Like, oh, I'm suddenly I'm a middle-aged woman. This is what I do. And I just might, why don't be yourself? Why don't you just do what you want to do rather than what people think you should do and telling you to do?
I think that an issue, speaking as one, privileged middle-class ladies, I would say our favourite hobbies are diagnosing other people with things and then feeling like so whether it's like neurodiversity or the menopause, like our favourite thing is to be like, I think you've got this. So I think you're suffering from the symptom of potentially having those people wafting in out of your lives where we are just desperate to diagnose people with stuff.
No, I just find it really sort of, and I just find it astonishing how people are so quick, not just women, men as well, to fall into those stereotypical things that, that they suddenly think they are. Like, oh, well, I'm just a dad now. Oh, right, okay, so you're not a person in your own right. You just that's what you do now, is it? That's your job. Oh, well, I'm a mum now. Right, that's fine, but you're still a person. You still have interests. You still, do stuff, or you should do. I just don't... Oh, well, I'm 44 now, So, who cares? Like, what is your life over? Should we do you in now? Have you got nothing else to offer? You know, it's like certain friends of mine always like to comment on my age, and I'm like, yeah, but look at you. You have fallen into middle-aged man, and you're younger than me. Your mindset and the fact that you will have a dig at my age means that you're not happy in the age and the life point that you're at. So all I'll say...
does sound like the menopause talking there, Rachel.
No. Listen, don't give in to age. Don't let people tell you, you know, what's up with you. You know,
also, when you see people like, there's so many amazing examples of like dynamic people who are, you know, pre-menopausal, post-menopausal, whatever age, whatever gender, whatever experience they're having, who are doing like the best work of their lives, being so exciting, looking the best they've ever looked, being amazing. And then there's some people in my life who are acting like it's still the Iron Age and we're all going to be dead by the time we're 41.
I'm just like, what is wrong with it? Should I just do that, you know, that Norwegian thing, is it, where you go and throw yourself off a cliff because you get becoming a burden? I'm just like, I don't understand how people are so... I know it sounds very cheesy, but you've got one go at all of this. You got one go. It's like I was with someone the other day and they went, oh, what would I know? I'm 38. Well, what does that even mean? What does that even mean? Seriously. What does that mean? Does it mean you know nothing or you know everything? Doesn't mean anything, does it? So just be yourself is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But also eat your dinner, not like Linda Hazzard would have you...
So, back to Linda Hazzard. She also, Ida Wilcox, dies in 1908 under her care. We moved to 1909. Blanche B. Tyndall passes away. Now, there's a guy who is he's sort of a member of the British aristocracy. His name is Eugene Stanley Wakelin.
Of course.
He is corresponding with Linda. He's writing to her. And she's like, I think you would really benefit from I'm going to yawn. That's how I feel about the aristocracy. Excuse me. So he's about 26 years old. She's writing to him. He's found her sort of, you know, book and is really sort of excited by her. And she's like, come to my sanatorium. We'll help you out.
Well, there's an invite.
Yeah, so he goes and stays with her. Now, at some point, she finds out that even though he is, you know, an earl or a lord or something, he doesn't actually have as much money as she thought. But she finds this out after she gets power of attorney over his dosh, basically. So he kind of disappears, but he doesn't die of starvation. He is found decomposing weeks after they stop seeing him on the grounds of Linda's like sanatorium. He has got a gunshot in the head. They say it's suicide. And Linda's reaction is about a week later, she wires a message to his lawyer and says, I need you to release more money from his estate because I need to pay the mortuary fees. So apparently she was really irritated when he found out he didn't have much money. And yeah, he died with very little money.
Wow.
So she would people would come there in medium health, let's say, with a medium amounts of money, and they would leave their dead with very little money in their account. So Eugene was an example of someone who they don't say that she killed him or that Sam killed him, her partner, but they are like, it's pretty weird that he was dead on her property and she had got power of attorney over his stuff. So who knows?
Interesting.
Viola Heaton is the next person who dies as a result of her starvation plan.
We should say, though, that some people did think she was brilliant. Some people thought she was fantastic. Some people were like, oh my God, this is an amazing... This has changed my life. This has made me so much better. And some people really did sort of say that she was... endorsed her methods, as it were.
Well, that's what she says. You know, she does say, I think I said it in the last episode, but she goes... I've helped thousands of people and only, you know, a few people have died. Like, those are very good odds. And I suppose I suppose she is right in that lots of doctors, if you've got a satisfaction report and a, mortality report in the course of their career, more people would have died than that. Oh my God.
But these are the ones we know about. There could have been others.
Excuse me. Yeah, those are the ones. Yes, exactly. Those are the ones we know about, because a couple, people die while she's in prison, but as a result of her sort of plan. So Viola passes away. 1910, Maud Whitney passes away in her care. Now, obviously, there's rumblings now that, I think too many people are starting to die. Now, one of her victims, he dies in 1911. His name is Earl Edward Erdman. Now, he was an engineer, so he was quite a precise guy. He lived for about 3 weeks when he moved to the sanatorium. And his death caused a bit of a ruffling. So the Seattle Daily Times ran a story that says, "Woman MD kills another patient." I don't think we need woman in there. I think they're slightly running that story with an agenda. Do you know what? I really hope that if I, if I unfortunately meet an untimely death, that should anywhere run my obituary, that they don't say female comedian or comedian.
Comedian. Some publications will say comedian. They will.
There's nothing you can do, is there? That's so mad.
Comedian.
I got called comedian. I think it was, though, I need to check this, but when I do stuff in Welsh, I think they use, but Welsh is like French in that they do use the feminine, the masculine, but they use the equivalent of comedian.
I don't mind it if someone is just using it because they're a bit out of touch. I also don't, but also I think it's when you do hear it, it's with them. I bet there's certain comedians working say that I think would still say comedian to behind our backs.
Oh,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think there's certain ones that will still do that. Definitely. Yes, without a doubt.
Can't wait to discuss them on WhatsApp later.
Yes.
So Earl, the engineer, while he's under her care, he keeps a really detailed diary, because he's an engineer, he's a details man, right? Where he monitors what he's given on each day. Why am I yawning so much? Oh, yeah. It's because I'm fucking exhausted.
It's tiring.
It's tiring defending women. So even ones that are very guilty of murder. I don't believe in the sexism behind it. So he keeps a very detailed diary of what he's given. So I've picked up, I didn't copy it all down because it is just the words mashed soup and tomato, strained tomato over and over again. So I'll give you an example on the first day. He writes, no breakfast, mashed soup for dinner, mashed soup for supper. Now that is quite a meal-filled day. Because later on, I thought, what did he eat on Valentine's Day? He had a cup of strained tomato soup, and that was it, 1 cup all day. But red for Valentine's Day, so lovely detail.
Lovely touch, yeah, nice.
February 17th, he had 3 oranges. She was big on those citrusy kind of things. She thought tomatoes, oranges are very good for you. Now, February 20th, this is where he starts to record kind of stuff going wrong. So he writes dizzy all day. The 21st, he says that he had that strained tomato soup. He says, I've got backache below the ribs.
Sounds to me, mate, like you need to eat something.
Yeah, it sounds like his organs are starting to suffer, right? All this sounds like kidney pain. At February 26th, he says pain in the right side below the ribs in the back. Had 1 soup, some tomato broth at 10:45.
Have a McDonald's, mate. Come on.
He does have half an orange that day as well.
Fucking hell.
Now, March 28th, bearing in mind, this is the end of February, so he's been on this diet for a long time. He is hospitalised, and they're like, this guy is very unwell. Previously, like, in modern times, you would have given them, what's it called, fluids.
IV drip.
IV drip, right? He was massively dehydrated. They needed to get salts into him, electrolytes, all that kind of stuff. They didn't have IV, drips there. So they organised for a blood transfusion to be done, and while they're organising it, he dies. So he passes away.
Oh my God.
On March 28th in the hospital, which I think Dr. Linda would have said, well, he died in the hospital. Literally, he was fine with me, and I sent him to the hospital. We should talk about her becoming a doctor, actually, because she is an osteopath. And then she gets a medical license to practice there was basically some kind of loophole in Washington at the time where they were being much more open-minded about other practices. And, this starvation method had been quite popular. It was based on this army doctor's work. So they gave her a license to practice with, which she then obviously used. And when she goes to trial, she pulls the whole... when they call her Mrs. Linda Hazzard, when the press are trying to get, she goes, "It's Dr. Linda Hazzard. Mrs. Linda Hazzard is my mother."
Meow.
Now, in 1911, Frank Southard, who is a partner in a law firm, passes away. These are all, especially in 1911 and onwards, they're all really kind of high-profile, very successful people. So C.A. Harrison, who's a publisher who publishes a magazine called Alaska Yukon magazine, dies as a result of Linda's treatment. Ivan Flux, who is English, actually, travels all the way over to get treatment. She gets all his cash and all his property. She makes sure that's signed over.
Travels all the way over to just not eat dinner. It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, that's like me on a plane where they forget to, if I'm doing a job and and they forget to tell the flight that I'm vegan, and then you see the panic in their eyes. So you're like, yeah, I guess I'm on this plane for fucking 36 hours without a meal.
I'll just have a bag of nuts, thank you so much.
And they're like, actually, but there'll be weird brands that are like, there's actually milk in the nuts, and you're like, right, okay, great.
These are meat nuts, actually.
Oh, meat nuts. Lovely word for testicles.
Always, yeah. It's lovely pair of meat nuts on him.
No one has ever said anyone's got a lovely pair of meat nuts.
Lovely pair of meat nuts. Oh, no.
So, yeah, Ivan dies with $70 to his name, and that's it.
God.
Now, Lewis Ellsworth Ryder, I think his full name is a publisher of a magazine called Sound Views. Okay. Now, he was treated at a nearby hotel called the Outlook Hotel, which is wild. That's the name of the one in The Shining,
Overlook.
Right? Oh, my God. I can't believe I got it wrong. That's mad, right? It's nearly not the thing.
That's mad, right? It sounds similar.
There's an O in it. So he's treated at the Outlook Hotel. He gets really, really ill, and they bring in health inspectors.
Ooh.
And the health
give him a
inspectors,
hygiene rating.
They say, "You need to leave. This is going to kill you." And he goes, "Okay, I'll leave if you leave." So they leave, and he escapes, and he goes to a secret location, and he dies because he is so convinced that this diet is what's going to be the thing that fixes him. He's so, this starvation. And I bet there's a lot of sunk cost fallacy where people have been doing it for 30 days and they're meant to do 40, and they're like, "Oh, but I'm only 10 away. I've done the hardest bit, and I'll be cured at the end." So when he passes away, bear in mind he's a big lad. He's like 5'11". He weighs less than 100 pounds. He's tired. Like, these people are dying because of starvation. Now, the director of health is aware this is going on, but two things are happening. She's licensed because of this loophole.
Yeah.
So they can't stop her from practicing. And also, her patients are very willing. No one is complaining about it.
That's what I was going to say. They want to be there.
So how do you possibly pursue a doctor who, their patients are saying they're fantastic and they are qualified to do what they're, qualified to do? It's really difficult. He basically said, the director of health said, "If she starts going at kids, then I'll step in." And that's like, okay, it's a fucking low bar, isn't it?
Yeah. Kids and dogs, then I'll step in.
So I will come back to the others because they are, I think, after, she's incarcerated. So we should talk about the sisters that lead to her downfall.
Yes. There's so this was, we said she's been to New Zealand.
No, it hasn't happened yet. So Claire, that happens much later. So Claire and Dora Williamson are two sisters who see an advert for her book, for the sanitarium in a paper, and think, this is what we need. Now, based on the symptoms, Claire I get confused between the two. They both have health problems. One almost definitely has endometriosis. She's been diagnosed with a I can't remember the word they use, but like backwards womb or something. And I think we would call it a retro something womb. Now it's tilted basically, and instead of sitting that way, it sits that way. And if you have endometriosis, it tends to be worse if you also have this. Most people who have it don't even realise until maybe they have an examination for something, or maybe they get pregnant. So they go to this, they're very excited. They travel all the way over to this sanatorium and they get ill fast. So they get to the point where they're staying in their rooms. They can't walk. Okay, they need to be held up to walk.
Oh my
they
God.
Can't actually leave their building anymore. And she tells them, Linda goes, this is because I believe you have a poison operating in your body that has been there for a very long time. The poison is fighting. It doesn't want to leave your body. So that's why you're fainting all the time, is the poison having like a fight. And every time you wake up again, it means that our methods have beat the poison. So they're like, great, we're getting better. She assigns them a private nurse because she wants to keep administering treatment, especially because they're very wealthy. They were orphaned at the age of 11 and they got their whole parents' estate, so they have loads of money. So she sends a nurse down called Nellie Sherman, who would go and do their enemas, which started off at being half an hour long, and they were built up. So over the course of this, not only are they starving, they're having 3-hour-long enemas.
Genuinely, this is so, it's weird. She's getting some kind of kick out of this, definitely.
Yeah, I think so. I also think that there's so they would just have to be like, bearing in mind they're passing out all the time, kneeling in a bath, getting an enema. Also, like, what are they getting out of there, bearing in mind they're not eating anything? It's not like you're cleaning out stuff that's stuck in folds of anything.
Oh, my God, water.
I know, also, if you have enemas too frequently, which they were having them, like, daily, it's, it completely fucks with the natural stuff that happens, the natural bacteria you need. It can rupture your colon. It's all sorts of health risks if you're not doing it properly, which it doesn't sound like they are. So...
Well,
they start to get really ill, and Linda pays them a visit and says, you know what, I think we need to make sure, I don't feel that you're very secure here, so why don't we write a letter that says that I'm in charge of your personal affairs and I will take anything that's worth anything, and I've got a safe at the sanatorium, I'll put it there. And they're like, we don't think you need to do that. And she's like, no, I would feel much better if that was the case. Okay. And so she goes around picking up stuff from the house that's worth anything, and she's like, while I'm here, I should get the land deeds that you have to your properties, because I think there's a property in Vancouver or something like that. So she literally takes the deeds and the valuable stuff from the house and leaves. And before she's leaving, she goes, oh, hold on. She literally pulls the rings off of Dora's hands. I was like, I'll take these. So she
surprised still fit her, to be honest.
Yeah, she's got it around her waist at this point. But yeah, so she removes the rings and the basically anything worth a bit of anything, and puts it in her safe because she would like to protect it for the sisters. Okay. She does say to the sisters, I think the real issue is the poison is in your brain. And that is why you keep collapsing. And that is why Dora at this point couldn't really speak very well. She wasn't making sense. She found it exhausting to speak. She was using words that didn't exist. And she said, it's the poison's hanging on in your brain. So poor old Nellie, the enema nurse, is like, this isn't right. And she secretly calls a doctor out to the women.
Yes.
God love her. It's 1911. It's March 29th at this point. They had hit the 4-week mark of the starvation plan that Linda had planned for them, fasting rather, I think she would say. And for some reason, Linda was like, we need to keep going with it, even though they'd sort of hit she basically is like, this is a much bigger problem than I thought it was. You're much sicker than I realised. So they call the doctor out. The doctor comes secretly, and is like, you need to get them out of here immediately. They are really unwell. They need to get medical attention and they need to be fed. So she goes, come on, we need to get you out of here. And the women were like, no, we're not doing it. We need to finish this and then we'll be cured.
It's a cult.
It's horrible. She was apparently she's very charismatic, very authoritarian. So I think, again, people who are in like when you're dealt with sort of like medical professionals going, don't know, and shrugging, someone who goes, I can do this, and is really, forceful, is very attractive prospect, right? So April 21st, the women are carried out on stretchers, and their
Drama queens.
When they weighed them, they had to use like a kid's scale instead of an adult scale because they weighed what you'd expect children to weigh.
We're talking like 3 stone here, aren't we? We're talking
tiny, absolutely tiny,
like unlivable.
Yeah. But then Linda says, okay, I think it's time for you to come to my sanatorium. I think only I can look after you now. So bearing in mind, they're carried out on a stretchers and an ambulance, and they're so excited because they're getting to go to the sanatorium and be there with Dr. Linda. So they go to the port to get on, I think it's a steamship. At the port, a guy arrives and is like, hi there, and they're expecting to see Linda. And he's like, hi there, I'm Linda's lawyer. Just while I've got you, can you sign over everything that you own to Linda, please? And they're like, what? And he's like, yeah, just while I've got you, can you sign over, just everything that you own, really? And he was like, it's just a precaution that we do. And so they're like out of their minds, delirious with starvation. They sign it. And it was like, great. Can you also sign this that says, so that basically she signs up a thing. I think it's Dora or Claire. Yeah, no, it's Dora, I think, who signs a missive that says, I promise £25 a year in perpetuity to Wilderness Heights to support the amazing work they do. Also, I'll just put it here, can you please cremate me? And Dr. Linda is to take care of me. So okay. I would like my body to be immediately cremated is one of the things that she insists on this letter that she didn't even know she was going to write that day.
Interesting.
Yes. So they get to the sanatorium on pretty much the first night. Sam goes up with a typewriter to Claire, who is again, also on the path to dying with this starvation. He goes, just while I've got you, Claire, is it all right if you just say, I write a letter saying you came here on your own free will. If you die, it's nothing to do with Linda. And then you just sign it. And she's like, yeah, okay. So he writes this letter and she signs it. And she goes, oh, brilliant. Can you send other letters to me? He's like, yeah, absolutely. So she writes to Margaret Conway, who was living in Melbourne at the time, so a long way away. She had been their long-term nurse and had a really good relationship with them, knew the healthcare problems that they'd had. And she writes and she says, this is April 30th. She goes, come on this boat and come first class. Basically, Margaret gets the letter and is like, she wouldn't have asked me to come all this way unless it wasn't absolutely urgent. So she gets on the steamship to head over. While she's on the ship, she gets some other messages. She gets one on the May the 29th. I think she gets a wire. And it says, do you know what? Sam and Linda are absolutely amazing. They're taking such good care of us. Oh, by the way, Dora's declining. So it's like, oh, fucking hell. She tries to get there. And then they arrive in Vancouver. She's expecting Dora and Claire to meet her. And Sam is there waiting for her. And he goes, it's great that you've come. By the way, Dora's really unwell. And she was like, but I thought she was fine because she also got a message there, like a wire there saying, Dora's doing, Claire's not very well, but Dora's doing great and it's really working for her. And so she arrives and Sam goes, yeah, Dora's really unwell. And she's like, oh, I thought Claire was the unwell one. He went, oh yeah, sorry, Claire's dead. But Dora's unwell. And so poor Margaret is like, what is going on? So
Dora's weighing less than 60 pounds here at this point as well.
That is absolutely wild. It's wild because you just think well, how much does a brain and a skeleton weigh? That's a big chunk of that. These poor women. They have an uncle actually in Portland called John, I can't remember his surname, maybe Hayward, something like that. And when he finds out they were in Seattle for ages, being sort of treated remotely, and they didn't tell him. He was like, what? He was really close to them. He's like, why didn't they tell me? But it's because they were afraid that if he saw them, he would try and stop the treatment. So Margaret gets in touch with him and they go meet. Dr. Linda arrives and says, yeah, Claire's dead, and then gets a bag, shakes it out on the table, and she's like, this is Claire's organs.
Oh, my
She's like,
God.
yeah, so obviously it's stinking. They're also,
why would you do that? What is wrong with this woman?
well, she was like, I did the autopsy. Let me tell you what I found here. And she's like, look at this. And she was like, can you see? So the organs are tiny, which is apparently a symptom of death by starvation, is they always go like child's organs. Because obviously when your body has got no more fat, muscle to eat, it starts eating the organs. And that's, you know, the complication which most people die of if it's not dehydration. So she goes, what went wrong here is Claire died of cirrhosis of the liver. So she points out the liver and she's like, you can see because it's very shrunken. But the liver wasn't any more shrunken than any of the other things that had shrunk massively because this poor woman was being starved to death. Also with cirrhosis, there's usually almost visible damage to it. It usually only affects people who are like 40 and over, who've usually been very, very heavy drinkers for a long time. I mean, think about people that we know who are famous people who pass away of cirrhosis, even with the amount they were drinking. And there's no record of these women drinking here. They were all born with, an existing condition, is that they are, usually in their 50s and above when they pass away. And that's, horrific. So they go, okay, we want to go and see the body. So Linda takes them to see the body. John goes in and he goes, well, it doesn't look anything like her. And this woman isn't thin. She hasn't been on a starvation diet. Also, her hair's not the same colour as Claire's. So they think that she just got a completely different cadaver of another woman.
That sounds about right. And
tried to sort of pass it off as Claire, which is bold. What a test, though. I definitely think there's a uncle in my life that if you showed him someone else's body, you'd be like, yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, wouldn't definitely be able to call it.
Yeah, I mean, if there would one. They'd be like, sure, why not? Yeah.
All women look the same anyway.
Yeah, sure, that's her. Definitely.
Now, she told this absolutely mad story. She said, when I did the autopsy on Claire, I opened up one of the heart valves and the blood inside it turned to powder in my hands. And that is a symptom of a medication she was given in childhood. So that is why she died. Which is like, I mean, blood doesn't, maybe there's blood clots and maybe they've dried out, but there just isn't like a thing.
She doesn't know what she's doing. She's a bloody liar, isn't she? She's a loon.
She is, yes. And she's trying to blame it on medication that they had, 20, 30 years ago. So Margaret is like, what the F? She sees the body and is like, that's not Claire. So she goes to immediately, is like, I need to go and see Dora. And then she gets there and sees that Dora is at death's door. And she says to Linda, well, I've got to stay with her. And Linda's like, okay, you can stay, but you have to stay in the room that Claire died in. So this poor woman who's had a relationship with these girls for years and years and years goes and has to stay in the room that Claire died in. Well, at least there'd be no
crumbs in the bed.
You fucking horror show.
Look, I'm just trying to lighten the mood.
Fucking hell. Oh, God. So she tries to convince Dora to leave. And Dora's like, no, I need to see this out. And Margaret won't leave her. She's worried about leaving her there and her dying. So she's like, fine, I'm just going to stay here and try and build her up. She finds out in this time that Sam and Linda have complete control of the women's estates, just as a precaution. So how it came about that having control of the estates is they, I think it was Dora had a relative, well, both had a relative called Jose, and he needed some money, and they were like, great, okay, Sam, can you do me a favour? Can you wire this money to Jose for me, please? And make sure he gets the money. And Sam's like, yeah, great, give me all the details. And so they give the details to Sam. And then Sam, they're going, has Jose got that money? Because he's written and said he still hasn't had it. And he keeps making excuses about why Jose hasn't got this money. There was one there and this was shut. And then there's a problem with this. And in the meantime, he has transferred all of her money over to himself.
Ah.
So there's no money to send. Now, Dora is still kind of the penny is starting to drop with her. And then she sees Linda wearing Claire's old clothes. And is like, yeah, I think this might have gone a bit far now. So they basically trap her. Margaret says, oh, can you send some letters for us? We need to speak to some people we know. They both start panicking. And Linda says, do you know what? There's a problem at the moment. They've got this thing where the post box is locked. So you'll have to give your letters to Sam, and Sam will go and post them out to your family. And from that point on, for 2 weeks, they don't get any letters, bearing in mind they would get letters daily from people they knew that they were corresponding with. And so one day, Margaret's leaving the house and the postman's there, and she says, has the thing with the locking of the post boxes stopped yet? Because I haven't been getting any post. And he's like, what do you mean locking of the post boxes? And it was like, oh, well, I was told that I couldn't send any post except in person. And he was like, no, that's never been a thing. Of course, their lie gets found out. So both her and Dora now know what's going on. And it's basically they're being imprisoned. July 4th, there's a fireworks display. Margaret is there with Dora. And one of the patients tugs at Margaret's thing and is like, can you get me out of here, please? She's starving me to death and I'm not allowed to leave. And he's like, I can't leave without Dora. I need her to be well enough for us to leave. So finally, Dora's like, okay, I can do it. I need to leave. I know I do. Her and Margaret go to leave. Linda stops them and goes, you can't go. And they're like, no, we want to leave now. We want to discharge ourselves. And she went, well, actually, I have, you need my written permission to leave. She signed this bit of paper back here saying that. Dora is like, I don't remember signing that. And she's like, well, you did, and you can't go anywhere. So they go to a lawyer to look over this paperwork. The lawyer gets in contact with Linda and says, you need to let these women go. And she said, oh, well, I would love to let them go, but they actually owe me £700, which is like several tens of thousands of pounds in modern money. They've run up this huge debt. I would love to let them go, but that's, my financial interest. So finally they scrape the money together, they get the uncle involved, and then they leave. So July 22nd, 1911, they leave. Dora has been in there for 93 days on this starvation diet.
Looking good, though. Looking good.
Listen, she's never looked better. People are saying Ozempic.
Oh, my God.
It's so funny when I've done it before where I've lost weight because I'm really sad, really unwell in the most profound way, and people are like, you look incredible, and they're like, what are you doing? You're like, oh, I hate myself.
I'm just depressed.
I've never been sadder.
Just really sad. Yeah.
I used to have a joke about that, I found it so weird when people sort of complimented weight loss, and I was like, if it's anything like me, someone's got thinner because they're sad. And I was like, best case scenario, they're sad. Worst case scenario, it's a tumour. Don't mention people's weight loss.
I did congratulate somebody once. I was like, oh my God, you look amazing. You look so well. They were not well. And they're even worse now and will never be better.
Fucking hell.
They're dead. Is basically what I'm saying.
Are you serious?
Yeah, serious.
Fucking hell.
But I didn't. They didn't know at the time.
That is an absolutely perverse thing, isn't it? That I bet some people who are have some awful disease that is ravaging them are getting incredible compliments about the way that they look.
Oh my God. Hello. You look amazing. Ready to
What's
take
your
on the
secret?
world? Ready to take on the world for the next 3 weeks? Lovely stuff.
Fucking hell. So, July 22nd, they leave. They get on a steamboat going to Tacoma in Washington. Now, the starvation level that Dora's at, it's very dangerous to you can't just give her food. It'll be very painful for her. Often it can cause complications. Mm-hmm. So the level she's at, it would have taken about 2 months for her to be able to eat anywhere near normally, and it probably damaged her relationship with food for the rest of her life. So when they get there, they contact the British Embassy, and because they're British,
what you need is jam roly-poly and custard and a roast beef dinner.
And if that doesn't work, why don't you hide a paedophile ring? So he contacts this attorney who specialises in fraud, and they basically start to sort of close the net around Linda and Sam, shall we say. they get her sort of medical license suspended is the first thing. Mm-hmm. And they push forward with a trial on first-degree murder for Claire. Now, she claims when this sort of comes to fruition, Linda is like, how dare you? And basically says, I'm a martyr here. I'm being made a martyr because I believe in non-traditional methods of medicine. This is big medicine trying to sort of silence me. So they go to trial. Sorry, Rachel, I'll keep it brief. It's January the 15th, 1912. Big year. Titanic goes down in this year.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
and they have no idea. They don't even know what's going to happen. It's January. They don't even know. They've got no
month
idea.
Was it?
April.
Was it?
I think so, yeah.
Great month, April. Not for them, but... So January 15th, 1912. Now, the trial has got loads of media attention because it's a female doctor. There's lots of victims. Also, it's a battle between natural medicine and traditional medicine. And at the time, natural medicine was gathering like quite a lot of supporters. But it's very hard for her to say, I am just a champion of natural medicine and I only ever cared about my patients. They're like, yeah, why did you take her gold fillings out then when she died and sell them? There are just too many things where it was so obviously financially motivated. But she is found guilty.
The body is just a vessel. The body is just a vessel. It's the spirit I'm interested in.
February 4th, she is found guilty, but of manslaughter. Not of murder.
Okay.
She is, on February the 7th, she is sentenced to between 2 and 20 years of hard labour.
Yeah.
That's too wide a thing for me.
It is too wide because she's released on the 26th of December 1915 after 2 years.
Yeah, it's nuts.
And she gets, a following year, a full pardon from the governor, Ernest Lister.
But the pardon comes with conditions, not that I think it's right. You know what the thing she does is, the whole time she's still writing books, she writes 2 books while she's in there. They think that's one of the reasons why she gets let off early, because she's written 2 books.
I thought this was supposed to be hard labour.
Yeah.
Like, who's got time to... I'd love to write a book, but I don't have time because I've got a gig.
Yeah.
So how is someone in prison doing hard labour? Not that I think hard labour's okay, bear in mind. But how are they...
Yeah, it's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. There's one point when she's incarcerated, she has to write out a list of, I don't know, something to do with her possessions. And it says,
John Lennon.
She has to write this list out, and she's listed as like convict in there, and she crosses out and was like, I didn't do anything wrong. She writes in its place.
Wow.
So she keeps writing to patients, because she's basically lining it up that when she leaves she's just going to carry on again, which she does. She's released, as you say, after 2 years. Yeah. The pardon is, we will give you a full pardon. This is wild, as long as you leave the country. So basically make it someone else's problem. So she goes to somewhere that we have just announced tour dates for, Auckland. So she goes to Auckland and basically starts it all again. Writes a book called like something like Diet in Disease and Systemic Problems, something like that. She builds... Oh, gosh, she's awful. She just starts the whole thing again.
As an osteopath and dietitian.
Yes. Quackery again.
Yeah.
But... she's there for 2 years and she goes, don't like it here. Bearing in mind, Auckland's like one of the nicest places I've ever been to. She moves back. She moves.
Wow.
The pardon is only in place if she doesn't move back to the United States. She moves back to exactly where she built her sanatorium. It's just north of it. She builds another sanatorium. She makes it even bigger, over 3 floors.
School of Health, it was called.
School of Bullshit is what it is.
Yeah.
Now, in 1925, a guy called Leonard Ritter goes to be cured by her. He sells his farm to pay for his stay there, to have this medical treatment. During the time he's there, he's only there a few weeks, he loses 68 pounds and obviously dies in a couple of weeks. She is once again in trouble with the police over this. She goes to court over it. It doesn't actually say what she is charged with. It's very hard to find out what she's charged with, but it's March 27th, 1925. She is found guilty of something. They find her 100 quid and she's got no jail time. So she's free to go and practice again.
Which she does. But what happens? What happens at the very end?
Well, she practices on herself, doesn't she?
Yep. And starves to death.
She starves to death.
In 1938.
Yeah, 1938. So she's... This is, do you know what? That weirdly is the thing for me that is like, not casts doubt on it all. Because, I mean, she's clearly selling fillings and, you know, she's being opportunistic. But like, well, she did put herself on that thing. So she must have believed that there was something, or is like that the ultimate cover? But then she didn't need to worry about that if she's dead. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, or maybe, I don't know. Maybe she did believe. We will never know. I'm not sure. I don't know what to believe. I don't know. Maybe she did believe it.
Yeah, maybe she.
To
I
a
can't
degree.
decide. I can't decide if she believed it and that's why she went on the diet at the end, and you know, she was ailing or in poor health, or whether she thought, I can do a double whammy here. I'm gonna die anyway. So if I die of my, you know, thing, I can go out as a martyr who believed in their cause.
Interesting.
I don't know. Do these people worry about their legacy? Maybe they do. Maybe it's that arrogance, right?
I think that. I think she probably would. Definitely.
Yeah, but also like, what a awful way to die. Do you know what I mean? Let's say she wasn't well and she's like, oh, I'll do my method on top. You must be like, oh, I'll just say I starved myself, but I will have a crumpet.
Yeah, can I just have something nice to eat, please? Can I have egg and soldiers, please?
Oh my God, dippy eggs, man. Absolute king tier food.
Exactly, I love it.
So good.
That's Linda Hazzard.
So that was Dr. Linda, let's just call her Linda. Mrs.
That's Linda.
That's a Linda done.
That's Linda.
Thanks so much for listening. As we said, it went on sale just a couple of weeks ago now. So we're going to Auckland. We're doing all Killa there, aren't we? And we're doing solo shows.
Yeah.
Which we're really, really excited about. Thanks everyone. Melbourne, I think the All Killa is nearly full in Melbourne and somewhere else, maybe Perth.
Yeah. So come and see us in Australia. Solo shows as well.
Yes. Yes.
It's not far off now, but I think it'll go really quick once we're there.
I think it'll fly by. It's
there's
so
a lot
soon.
happening.
In a month, literally today, we'll be travelling there.
Yeah. There's a lot going on, and I think it'll go really quickly.
Yeah.
I'm on tour for the next couple of weeks. Come and see me on tour. RachelFairburn.com.
You're on tour till June.
Yeah, there's a couple of rescheduled dates.
Yeah.
So do come along if you wish. That's it, really.
Yeah, come and see Suspiciously Cheap Comedy in London.
Yeah.
Thoroughly recommend that. That's about all I've got to sort of plug. That's it. Thank you so much for listening, and we shall... Well, maybe the next time we record this, it'll be in...
Yeah.
We'll be in a different continent.
We'll be in Australia, maybe, yeah.
That's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, I know.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
International record of the podcast. I am quite giddy about that.
Yeah, it's quite exciting, isn't it, that? Yeah.
We'll go and do a little bit of it where we film our piss going down the other way down a toilet for you guys.
Oh, how exciting. Yes, please.
Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you soon. Bye.